welcome back to 0 to 60, where the three bearded weirdos from Manchester who talk a lot of shit about Fab are back. Hi, Liam.
Hello.
Hi, George. Hello. And today we're joined by a very special guest. It's the actual, as we found out, he's the actual Scott.
You've been waiting to do this.
I've been actually planning this all day. The actual Howling Scott Mines. How you doing, mate?
I was fine right up until that bollocks. Honoured to be a temporary bearded weirdo. If you remove the Manchester for the day, I'm doing all right. Thank you, my man. Hopefully, we're all doing all right as well.
Yeah, we'll take Northwest for now, and I'm sure, depending on today's performance, we'll be having you back with our little announcement at the end of the pod.
Damn, I didn't realise we were assessing his performance. Bloody hell! Like,
you
didn't realise he was on trial. I've left my performance sheet somewhere else. I'm going to go print one off.
Yeah, no one told me there was a quiz. I am not, I'm not prepared.
Well, funnily enough, these two don't have been assessing their performance all along. How they're still here, I've no idea.
Yeah, we've been failing.
We're desperate. Yeah.
Okay, but, I feel a bit safer now.
No one else wants the job.
Well, exactly. You'd want to work with me, but obviously, I think that there's a couple of bits happened in the world of Fab recently. There's a little trip to a place called Utrecht. Except for everyone, except for George on this occasion, unfortunately. But,
sadly didn't go.
Yeah, we tried our best to persuade you, mate. But
I know you did, but we've got other trips coming, so
we do, and I think that's a nice little segue into the fact all four of us are making the slightly arduous journey in comparison to some we're going to Lille, aren't we?
Certainly are.
Some of us for the calling.
Yeah. I mean, don't rub it in or anything, but it's going to be a great trip. I'm honestly I really enjoyed my time in Utrecht with two of the three of 0 to 60, and now I'm sure now that we have both political and minnowism on our way, that we'll be even better off.
Liam's so happy.
He's unbelievably happy.
The little minnowism and big sauce.
It was perfect.
I think coming up with that is his crowning achievement.
Everyone needs a joke they're famous for, and that's a better one than the one I'm unfortunately known for. So,
it's the without leaning into too much into Utrecht and spoiling all the good stuff. I mean, it's at what point we send Belittle off to go and find minnowism when we've lost them in the rush of what's going on in Lille. But I think without going too much into that, because I think we can talk about a little bit about what we expect Lille to be. How was Utrecht for you boys? How did you find it?
That's a broad question.
Oh, I always start broad.
Yeah, just how was the entire event? Okay. Honestly, it's going to be a bit of a biased one for me. But anyone who knows me personally, it's been a while since I've been able to get myself out of the country or out of the woodwork. I've been working a lot prior to this. It's kind of my first premier event abroad in quite some time. So a little bit of a shame it was a little on the smaller side, but in terms of organization, just kind of getting the games in and kind of getting back to reality, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. It was a really nice escape. It was nice, obviously, getting to know you two better, and just play some goddamn Fab. So yeah, all in all, barring the inability to know whether or not you needed cash or card, it was a pretty good trip, all in all.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got stung with people tell me it's very card heavy, and then turning up without any cash to walk into a supermarket to be told they don't accept cards effectively, and having this complete loss of what to do, and then not being able to get cash anywhere, then getting cash, then couldn't spend it because everyone else was card. But anyway, that's enough of my woes of that. But no, I think it was one of those. It's obviously me and the boys were very looking to go to Madrid, and I think that was a little bit smaller than especially tournament centre were predicting. I think this was the same. I think the only thing I really hope is that obviously with this Lille and the PT, that obviously gets the kind of numbers that they're really hoping for. It sounds like it's going to be a really good event. But
you got all the US and New Zealanders and stuff coming over, so should be a much more busy room, you would think. Unfortunately, filled with better players as well, but.
Yeah, I mean we can just beat them anyway, right?
Yeah,
we're going to win, especially Mr. PT himself.
It's easy. Just draw well.
Yes, play good.
Play good cards. To quote our very own Big Sauce, just play good cards.
Play good cards. All right.
Just play good cards and draw when you need them. It's easy.
For 15 odd years now, I've made a living off of playing fucking atrocious cards, and I'm not stopping anytime soon.
That's when you know a man plays Ranger. But
it's 2 here.
This will be the last episode of 0 to 60 where we're all together.
The daggers I just got
being replaced by the Manchester Rangers Society shortly.
Oh yes.
Well, to be fair, if everyone's chasing the bounty that's recently put on the first living legend points, we'll get quite a few Azaleas knocking about. But
the Azalea bounty for someone to do the impossible. I respect anybody who attempts that at Lille.
Good chance I win the lottery first, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So going back to Utrecht, then, I mean, Liam, do you want to talk a little bit about how you found it and how you got on?
Uh-oh.
Assume it'd be quick.
Not really.
It doesn't have to be quick, right? Because I suppose I've got to talk about the highs and the lows. So it was fucking awful. No, it was a well-run event. The Champions Battle was a cool thing to be a part of.
Big agree on that, actually.
Yeah.
I obviously flunked out all 3 on that one. We won't talk about that anymore. But some good opponents, obviously, because it was an invite-only tournament, so the standard was high anyway. And then going into the calling, drafting definitely wasn't my friend. Made some mistakes, got screwed over a little bit. CC definitely wasn't my friend. Bri decided to betray me and stab me in the back with Rosetta Thorn rather than swinging it himself.
That's what Runeblade will do, my friend.
And then proceeding to the battle hardened, I drafted like shit. And then I ended up 3-0 in my draft pod right at the end when it was all for nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite interesting the fact that I think the Uprising draft, because that made up a big part of the weekend, obviously with the calling and with the Battle Hardened being, the Battle Hardened was purely draft.
Yep.
And obviously I know we've spoken a lot about how we feel like draft is at the moment, but what do you think, especially in that first draft, because obviously you actually 3-0'd your last pod. What do you think changed, or what did you do differently that changed from 0-3 to 3-0, or what was wrong about the first pod?
I think, so the first pod, I think I was in a pod full of less experienced drafters, and I don't think I really know how to approach it, so I was trying to read signals, which was the correct thing to do, but probably the wrong thing to do in that scenario. I should have just drafted as many good cards as I possibly can and tried to get my player skill to get me through the draft, which I just ended up not doing. So I ended up, I think I 1-2'd my pod. I drafted, I think that's when I drafted Dromai.
Yeah, you're on Dromai on that one.
It was, yeah. My deck wasn't great. But I started drafting, I got Korth early, and then I think I got Korth again. But it's fine, because it was a learning experience. The second draft was my fault. I drafted my seat wrong. I think I went for the Icelander seat, and in reality I should have been drafting Dromai in that one, because my deck would have been cracked. Obviously I seen like 2 red rakes, I seen a Vincerakai and a Dominia. I had to pass them all because it was too late to take them.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah, you don't want to be passing those.
So then obviously that was pretty bad. And then the third draft, I genuinely think that I was just sat in the 5 seat. So I got early good 5 cards, and then just kept drafting 5, and then obviously got a decent deck, and then I just played through it pretty well, to be fair. I actually played well. I think they were the best 3 games I played, apart from, I think there's one turn in my last game where I made a mistake about swinging an Ember Blade to that go again. But I still ended up winning that game anyway.
It's quite interesting because I think I had one draft. I think it was the first one of the Battle Hardened, where I think it was where people were pivoting and then happened to be pivoting off what I was actually, and I did a pivot as well. So It was quite interesting. Actually the pod that I thought had the best draft was the pod I did the worst in. But I mean, Scott, how did you find the drafting in Utrecht?
So I thankfully started really, really strong. I had a fantastic Icelander deck in the first draft of the main event. If I had any faults, I ended up with a deck that had 3 red Ice Bolts, 3 red Aether Hails. So I had plenty of damage, which was pretty stellar. I was maybe a blue or 2 short of where I needed to be, though, in terms of actual pitch count. The highlight of the weekend actually came from that draft where I played against a Dromai opponent who on the play goes Red Rake the Embers into Invoke Uvia on turn 1 against Icelander, and I win that game. I felt like an absolute god afterwards and would not shut up about it for a solid hour and a half.
I remember when you first told me about it, I didn't believe you.
Yeah.
What sort of
Red
pack
Rake.
did you sign? Who did you sign a deal with to do that? Bloody hell!
Yeah, thankfully I got very lucky that one of my 2 poppers was in my opener, and my opponent did not attack with the Uvia, but I could still send the popper at it to get it off the table on turn 1. But it was a really, really sweet game. A lot of back and forth, a lot of very ideally timed blues in the arsenal to pop an Ashwing to take away the action point and still be able to push with the wand. Games are super close. Unfortunately, my first pod was really light on Phi drafters, which is hilariously both of my pods for the weekend were actually quite light on Ninja drafters, and I lost to the only Phi in the pod in round 3 to not 3-0 the draft, as his deck was just insane, quite frankly, which is fine. So 2-1 the first draft of the main event. Sadly, lost a load of Phi mirrors and a Viserai matchup to Philippe Van Donzelaar in the CC portion of the main event. And then played the Battle Hardened, and I unfortunately ended up in the 7-man pod in the Battle Hardened. Somebody had checked in and then didn't carry over to the rest of it, so we ended up with short 1 person. And our draft was so strange. So my first 4 picks of that draft are a Chromai, an Asvalai, a Kyloria, and a 4th dragon. So I have 4 dragons after 4 picks in pick 1. And somehow that pod ends up with 4 Dromais, 2 Icelanders, and a Phi again as a 7-person pod. And I think most of the Dromais end up kind of short as a result. I know I end up playing the 3 Phoenix Flames, and I'm really not happy about it, but it's kind of better than a Bauble in that spot. And yeah, sadly 1-2'd that, beating an Icelander, losing to the 1 Phi, and losing a Dromai mirror. So it was not the best for me the second time round. But yeah, honestly, the draft format, I have some queries. Things I actively don't like about the format. I have some things I really do like about the format. But it's a lot of fun, and honestly, it's so strange because heading into Lille, part of me is just I want to draft more than I want to play CC, which is not somewhere I've kind of found myself in Fab so far. I've very much been like a constructed guy, but I'm not gonna not day 2 the main event because I want to draft. But if I'm playing the Battle Hardened, I'm kind of okay with it. I actually want to draft this set more. So.
No, I think it's interesting. Outside of you say it's better than a cracked bauble, I actually had a deck with 3 flames and 3 cracked baubles.
Yeah, you had a real train wreck. You did, yeah.
I just remember walking out of that draft, walking over to you boys, looking as disconsolate as I think Liam did after the Champions Battle, going, I've got baubles.
Mate, you look like I'd slapped your firstborn. I was genuinely concerned.
I think I'd have been less upset about that, to be honest. It's the moment I walk over and I go, I've got to put balls on it. And you went, no, it's all right, mate. You can put 3 flames. I went, no. I've already got 3. I need 3 balls.
Oh, no.
Mate, what did you do in that draft? Goodness me.
So, I started, because as I think anyone who knows me, I'm not the biggest fan of Wizard. So anyone to the left of me...
You've never been subtle about that, not going to lie.
I thought I was. I'll have to work on my subtlety going forward. It's always been something I thought I was very strong at. But I'm not the biggest fan of Wizard, so it'd take a lot to make me draft Icelander. And I started on Dromai. I got some really good picks through. There was a Red Ember Moor, but then suddenly everything dried up. There was just nothing coming through, and I'd hate drafted. I think it was a blue singe, and in a pack where when it started to dry up, I'd taken a few wizard cards. So unbelievably, I pivoted to Icelander, and then I got about 4 or 5 really good, solid picks for Icelander. And then suddenly that dried up. It turned out the guy who was sat opposite me, at exactly the same time I'd pivoted off Dromai, because of just how the packs had circulated. He also pivoted off Dromai onto Icelander. And then I just ended up with a really short of cards, which was not a particularly favourable position to be in. So it was, I think it's a mixture of bad drafting on my part and a little bit of bad luck that someone had literally chosen the same moment to pivot from what I was on onto what I was planning, what I pivoted into. Still 2-1 with that deck somehow.
It was shocking, honestly. I was like absolutely like brimming about this win against Dromai with the Uvia rake start, and James is just like, yeah, no, I won 2 with that deck. I'm like, there's no justice in this world.
No,
like absolutely none. I just had to fight my ass off to win this game to be 2-0, and my man's just like, yeah, no, I've got 6 unplayables in my deck, and we're on the same record. Nice. Great.
I mean, I've robbed people in that. I don't understand how I got those wins.
You didn't play me, and I felt like you robbed me.
Yeah. I'll be banned from Gem for robbing. That's it. I've just robbed all the fab of good results and
truly
strange.
Unjust.
Wait, were you using titanium baubles instead of cracked ones? Is that what was happening?
I mean, do you know what? I would have taken titanium baubles over that every goddamn day. But I'd actually prefer if it was titanium baubles over cracked ones. But
I think everyone would, mate. They're just strictly better.
Strictly better, yeah.
They're blue and they block.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel if anyone can win this goddamn Azalea battle, it might actually be Brooks. You want to talk about
well, to be fair,
it's full of unplayables. There's only one man for the job.
If he can win with baubles, and just maybe he can manage an Azalea.
I have to say, I do enjoy that Ranger lady. She deserves more love than she ever gets. But
time to get training on it. That's it. It's yours to win.
You heard it here first, folks.
I'd take it. But and then I mean, it was quite interesting. Then the second draft, I went for Hell or High Water. I'm taking Dromai or Phi. Got some really good Dromai picks, and I actually 1-1-2'd. 1-1-1. Sorry, you can't 1-1-2 and a 3. But anyway, I'm an idiot. The draw was against an Icelander who just took it to time, thought they could have won it. They had no chance. I still had about 4 Ashwings. And they weren't doing any damage, and they pretty much decked out, but that was a bit frustrating. Then I lost the Dromai Mirror, because their Dromai deck, when I thought mine was cracked on the second draft, theirs was absolutely phenomenal. They'd just taken all the Red Ember Moors when I thought there hadn't been any. It's because they had 3.
Yeah, Red Ember Moor is up there. What a lot of people don't realize in this format is like, although Phi is a de facto like force hero, if you're talking about the highest high roll nut deck, it is just Dromai, because you present the most damage on a single turn cycle out of any of the 3 heroes, because you can do these Red Doombreaker into Red Ember Moor turns that just present 14, which no one else can present more than on a single turn cycle.
And if you can get any sort of the Ashwings in between that, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, of course. That's just like raw, those 2 cards, regardless of anything else. But if you're talking about raw, 4-card hand, no arsenal, no board, no nothing, you can still just present 14 with 2 reds as Dromai, which is something the other 2 heroes just cannot do.
Yeah, and I think if you draft a reasonable number of the Centipires, with the lack of poppers in the set and how rare they are, I think it's very difficult for Phi to play into that.
People are figuring it out. I think early on in this draft format, people were passing the Ember Moors like quite happily, focusing on dragons, focusing on rakes, focusing on like scaring sands and this kind of stuff. And that doesn't happen anymore. People have like learned their lesson, and that the Centipires are high picks for Dromai, and I think they should stay there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I still think at least Red Rake is obviously, I think,
best common. Still the best common for Dromai.
Yeah.
The question starts happening when you get offered like your 3rd Red Rake or your 1st Red Ember Moor, and then it's like, I probably take the Ember Moor.
The Ember Moor.
But
I mean, and George, you say that poppers aren't common. In my first pack of the second draft, there were 3.
That's more than I have, I think, in an entire draft.
I've seen drafts with less poppers than that.
I've definitely seen drafts with less poppers. I think I've had some where I've actively gone in going, I'm going to draft some poppers this round because I got screwed by it last time, and then seen none or one.
It had one red Brothers in Arms, then another red but foil Brothers in Arms, and Flex, which obviously you pay for it to get to.
It's a popper. It counts.
It pops. I mean,
you can shake your head all you want, Liam. It still fucking counts.
Still gonna pop.
It's a pseudo popper.
Yeah. Pseudo popper. That's like calling you a pseudo player. Get out of here.
Well, I think he was a pseudo player on the. George, that's nothing on when we're talking about. I think I was pretending to punch. I said your face has been erased. He went, actually, that's true because he's talentless. And he said that yesterday. That was cruel.
I know. Look, you set me up for it just too well. I've got to be honest. Come on.
Felt quite bad after he'd played 6 rounds that weekend. I was like, you've got the same amount of match wins as George, and he's not here.
I mean, I'm sorry to break it to you. I won some games at my road to nationals that weekend, so actually, you had a significantly worse record.
Not true.
Oh, Liam, you poor boy.
We love you, buddy.
Yeah, obviously that was the draft. Obviously, Hamish did really well on day 2 and got to the top 8 of the Battle Hardened after missing out.
After a very rough day 1, yeah.
Yeah, which if anyone wants to start going, just check out the latest Push the Point episode where he goes into his experience. But also, he was just all on the Force Fi train. So I think you'll probably get a lot of drafters. Maybe if they're unsure, will probably push Fi, but.
Yeah, I must admit, I was intrigued to hear from you, Scott, that obviously you had such lack of Fi in your pods. Because it seemed to me, at least, like everyone was already on this idea of Force Fi pretty heavily. I don't know, how was for you guys with Fi's in your pod, Brooks and Liam on that one? Like, was it? Well, do you think it was just more of a meta choice on the continent, or was it?
No, for sure. I think the guys will say that like most pods were like Fi heavy. I ended up with the 2 anomalies really, where there was just like. I think people were arguably gone too far the other way and had been like burnt by people forcing Fi in a pod and were actively trying not to.
So I won't, and I'll have the pick of the cards, and then
So I think I heard this on the most recent Arsenal Parcel episode with Michael Feng, and I kind of massively agree with it that if you are not a limited player and you don't feel comfortable with draft or you haven't played this format, your best bet 100% is to go into this format and force Fi. Just because realistically, the average draft can support 3.5 Fis, 2.5 Icelanders, and 1.5 Dromais, based on pack distribution and whether or not the third slot is Draconic or Ice a lot of the time. So if you're heading in and you don't know how to read signals, you're not sure about what cards are good, what you should be taking over other stuff, your safest bet is to go with the linear hero that can support the most players. And a lot of people that prioritize CC for this event and wanted to make sure their CC decks were great, did testing, wanted to try and break the format and stuff, they chose it over focusing on limited. And for all those people, that take of, hey, let's just force Fi, it can only go so badly. Your average Fi deck still 2-1s. Is much safer than being like, okay, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Let's draft Icelander. Oh, I opened an Ice Majestic. It must be good. And like first picking a Frost Hex that basically is a blue block 3 and does nothing else. So I seem to think that was most of the mentality. And now following the event, we're coming through to the other end of the spectrum where people are realizing that so many pods were won by Dromais and Icelanders who knew how to draft the pod because they were basically getting the pick of the litter. That if you don't know how to draft those heroes correctly, you're getting actively burned because you're on autopilot, essentially, and ending up in spots where you're guaranteeing a 2-1. And guaranteeing a 2-1 with Fi is fine if you're looking to top 8 an event, but if you're looking to win an event, especially like a calling that's 14 rounds or something, you can't just be giving up 3 rounds of draft because you don't know how to draft another hero, because you get unlucky once in CC and your day is over.
And that's the thing, especially with Battle Hardened, it was you had to 5-0.
5-0 and lose the last round was the only way you made top 8. If you lost any earlier,
you were done.
Good night.
So harsh, that isn't it? For the Battle Hardened.
And this is my point. Like, you saw a lot of people. Maybe I can't comment about every pod because the event was huge for the Battle Hardened, obviously. But a lot of pods that I spoke to, a lot of people that I talked to in my pod, were very much like, hey, we can't be one of the 4-5s in this pod because it's so much harder for one of the 4-5s to 3-0 the pod than it is for one of the 2 Dromais or one of the 1 Icelanders or, so on and so forth. And when 2-1 isn't good enough, you see people pushing more towards these, I'm going to 3-0 or 0-3 strategies. And that's very much what you can do with Icelander and Dromai in this draft format, where if you go in and you're right, you're going to crush the entire pod. If you go in and you're wrong, you're going home early. And that's how it's going to be. And that approach is fine for an event where 5-0 or 0-5 are the only things that matter, right?
Yeah, it was a really, really strange. I mean, obviously, it was the amount of people and the battle hardened, and the fact there's only 2 drafts. I think there was probably something there that went slightly awry, whether it was timings or whatnot. But it felt like it needed another draft pod after, at some point to be able to try and.
At that point, is the event's £30 more expensive and no one plays it.
Well, that's also the side point. I mean, obviously, the events aren't cheap. Obviously, we got a lovely Thor mat for the Fable package, but I don't know. I mean, the main thing was obviously I enjoy the draft format, especially I think if you're doing it with good experienced drafters, it can be a little bit.
I think
when you're playing
my main critique of this format, there are a few things I'm sure we can do a whole podcast on Limited sometimes if people want it, but my main critique of this format is it was a mistake to draft 14 card packs. The fact that we're now taking out the tokens and the cold foils and not being able to play with them, you're drafting 14 cards, so you end up with 42 at the end of the draft, and you have to have 30 playables, and that's just, there's no room for error. Like, if you want a full suite of armor, you really can't be ending up picking cards that you're not going to end up playing. And it's kind of forcing people to take this force fire approach, or this like super narrow approach where you're picking a hero early and just kind of hoping you're right, because you can't really afford to be wrong. There's like staying open till pick 5, pick 6 is practically impossible if you don't want to end up with baubles in your deck in some capacity, because you can't afford to waste those picks. And I think my biggest critique, as far as I'm concerned, LSS-wise, love the cold foils being kept and not being drafted thing. Absolutely adore it. Keeps the draft experience pure. Just add another card to the pack. 15 card drafts with Welcome to Wraith and stuff was so much more forgiving, and you could take equipment so much more highly than these 14 card packs where if you prioritize equipment too much, you might end up without cards in your deck.
Yeah, it's the extra token slot, isn't it? It's just that it's having that as well. I mean, I don't know if we need the extra token slot. I don't know if that's because they don't want to put the cold foil on the outside of the pack. Literally why there's the extra token slot there. I have no idea, but it does seem like it's an interesting choice to have 2 tokens instead of just 1.
Even if you want to keep the 2 tokens, just print a 17 card pack.
Card.
I think it's fine. It's easily my biggest critique of the format, just because you have no room to breathe. You very much are I saw a red rake pick 2. Here we go, I guess, and cross my fingers. And that's pretty rough, honestly.
I think it's even rougher for Icelanders, right? Is they're the only ice hero. If you pick one, you see a blue ice ball or Aether Hail.
See, I actually think it's worse for Dromai, funnily enough, because they have less slots on average in the card pack, and it's becoming pretty clear they have 3 to 4 commons that are genuinely stellar, and the yellow versions of those are also average. And beyond that, the other stuff is just kind of garbage, to be honest. You really do want to be your rakes, your centipires, your skirring sands. There's very few, sweeping blow, another one that's genuinely up there. But most of Dromai's other commons are really thin. So if you go into Dromai early and you just see a wall of yellow sand covers afterwards, you're in for a horrible time, because there's the rest of the deck, quote unquote, to draft the other version is all rares. All the dragons are at rare. So you don't have the ability to kind of bend into another version of the hero to compensate. You're just kind of stuck playing the crap versions of already mediocre cards. And at least in both Fi and Icelander's case, all the reds and all the blues are fairly functional for different reasons. Fi actively wants 8 to 10 blues in his draft deck to play through Icelander. So taking blue block 3s highly is just often correct, because you only need 4 to 6 starters. Whereas Icelander Dromai, they can't play these. Like, even to be fair, Icelander can still play these yellow frostings, these yellow Aether Ice Veins. They're still acceptable cards. Where a lot of the yellow versions of Dromai's commons are like nowhere close to that level.
Yeah, I think she also doesn't suit many of the Draconics as well. I think like a lot of those are very playable for Fi. Dromai, I just don't think necessarily doesn't want to see a lot of those.
100%.
Doesn't really
Like
flames.
You can play Lava Bursts and Blaze Headlongs in Dromai just as like reasonable cards, but they're pretty clearly Fi cards, right? Like in terms of the traditional game plan in the format, like Lava Burst a little less so because at least it blocks 3. But they're both like very playable in Dromai just because they're good early picks to take because they keep you safe and can let you move between the two heroes. But they're definitely way more tailored towards Fi's game plan than they are Dromai's. So you still end up in this spot where, Fi players will take those early, realize that the Fi is drying up and try and move into Dromai alongside you. And you have the same problem where, you end up with Blue Rake the Embers, which is like a 5 out of 10 at best.
Yeah, it doesn't give you Dragon's Go again. It's just bad.
It makes you one Ashwing, basically.
Yeah,
which is
or just that you literally do it just to get the Ash on a bad turn.
Yeah, sure. Like turn 0, it's fine to just like make an Ash with it or whatever. But
it's not what you want to play in a game.
I think there are definitely higher quality commons for Fi and Icelander than there are for Dromai. So like it's so much easier to train wreck a Dromai draft than it is the others, because even your bad Icelander decks, they still only have like medium versions of cards that are actively good, and they all still block 3. Whereas like Dromai, the medium and bad versions of the good cards are actually just like worse than the medium versions of Fi's good cards, which is not a place you want to be.
No, I can agree with that. I think it's why I quite like the draft as much. I don't like how people fell into that Force Fi kind of thing, but because obviously, like I said, I think we can do a whole episode on how to draft. I know it's, Liam, not something you've focused a lot on in terms of like your 175 pack one pick ones that you do while you're.
That's just today as well. Obviously he's on top of it.
I'm going to take the unfortunate credit for this one. I have opened Liam's eyes to how to assess limited, and now the only thing he knows is how to open booster packs, how to pick the first 5 cards, how to eat hot chip, and how to lie. There is approximately nothing else that he knows how to do anymore.
But I mean, obviously there was that was the draft element of the sort of the weekend. Obviously, George, you had an experience drafting. Was it at Jester's or?
Yes, yeah. I went to one of our local stores for an RTN. Had a draft experience. It was, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a much more condensed field than you guys were playing into. But I think trying to even think what I drafted here. Drafted
Icelander.
Drafted Dromai. Drafted Fi because I think I was just in the right seat for it in the second draft. My Dromai deck was pretty insane, as you were saying before, Scott. I think I managed to present about a 20 plus damage turn with a blue and like red Junebreaker, a couple of Ashwings, and a red Embermaw.
I'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely destroyed a Fi because he didn't have a popper and he can't block that. So he blocked a bit, died the turn after. It was. I had a successful one there. That Dromai deck was great. The Fi deck was solid. But was enough to get me three wins in that pod, and then went into the top 8 and already had my invite, so wasn't really focused on drafting, shall we say, for the final pod.
Going for the magpie approach.
You could describe it as that. I don't know what you were doing, Brooksy, because I still managed to have a full deck, and I drafted about 8 Majestics.
See, that's the thing. When someone's not doing it as properly and they still get a better deck than you really have to be questioning.
I'm starting to think Brooks was giving cards away during the draft.
It wouldn't surprise me. That's probably when he was trying to draft Wizard, because I don't believe he for a moment considered playing Icelander.
To be fair, I also at the weekend drafted. Well, during the summer, I drafted the Alluvian Constellus and I still didn't play Wizard. That's how. To be
fair, it's not exactly good.
It's not great. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It's not. But even pulling that, I'm still not even thinking Wizard. But obviously, the other thing that we had was there was the CC portion. I mean, Scott will let you regale your tale of exactly how you got in the Champions Battle as you were the top performer. So
I'll take the
moment
pride
of
for the
glory.
Champions Battle. So I took Fi, boo, I know, sad face, questions, multiple roars. I'd played it in the RTN the week before. Deck was pretty clearly fantastic. The sad truth is I hadn't quite got to the Blossom of Spring part. My list was very much more of a traditional, shall we say, attrition Fi, very much a Mask of Momentum deck. Played Stubby Hammers in the mirror, but utilized its armor as a fridge otherwise to set up big turns. Was really happy with my list going in. Played a lot of blue block threes that helped you feel favored in the mirror. So of course, I get paired round one into Rob Canton, which is always a good way to start your day. For those who don't know Rob, they called him the King of the North for the reason. Rob has my number. He beats me all the time.
It's like Liam pulling into Jacob Hand round one. It's just
I feel your pain on that one as well. To be fair, I can't go to a PQ without playing Rob at least once.
Yeah, I have a pretty bad track record against Rob. He does like to beat me up quite a lot in card games. But I am proud to report that I still lost to Rob in the first round, and nothing has changed whatsoever. So yeah, unfortunately that game was really rough. I had some pretty awkward hands early, and he just didn't give me time to unfix that in the Fire Mirror, so we died horribly there. Round two, I get paired against an Oldhim. Oldhim was a matchup I was really comfortable with the list I took. I actually hadn't lost to Oldhim prior to that event with the fire list that we played. Game felt great, honestly, to start with. Felt fantastic. So I get a little awkward midway through, and I hadn't found a Spreading Flames, and we were maybe 30 cards deep. So the plan against Oldhim's very much set up that big turn of Spreading Flames, Art War, pop your Pouncing Links to put a Lava Burst on the end. And then they very much struggle to recover from that. And it took me a little too long to find that. And then unfortunately I made a small mistake that let me get ice reacted in a spot where I shouldn't have got ice reacted and lost about 6 damage on the end of a combat chain. And this unfortunately meant the Oldhim fatigued me out on 3 life at the end of that round, which I think the game's very winnable if I don't make the misstep. Unfortunately I did, and we didn't actually finish the game. I had like 5 or 6 cards left before when time's about to be called, but I was going to lose, didn't want to be an ass about it, conceded the game, so I was 0-2 to start, which is obviously not exactly how I expected my weekend to go, and then I chose violence, and I decided to not lose anymore shortly after that. So with seven round event, I agree, it was a popular choice as far as many are concerned. So yeah, 7 round event. So five more rounds in quick succession, and I just didn't lose. Beat two more Fire Mirrors, beat a Viscerai, beat a Briar, beat a Prism, and they were all fairly mundane games. Honestly, nothing super exciting to report about any of them. But yeah, cashed it for $100, which was nice, and a heck of a comeback after a atrocious start to the weekend. Left me feeling very confident heading into the following day. First round of CC at the Calling was 2-1 in my draft. Was feeling pretty good about my odds. Hit a Prism, crushed the Prism. So because Prism's a fantastic matchup for 5. Was like, okay, great. 3-1, we're fantastic. And then I stopped winning again. I unchose violence and started losing 5 mirrors. And to Viscerai against Philippe, and sadly did not day 2 the main event. So that was most of my CC for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that was because I decided to surprise people when I took Dorinthia.
Totally out of character. Yeah. I mean, who would even guess that?
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition, right? But it was one of those moments where I was like, right, I'm actually pretty comfortable playing into Fi. I do actually back Dorinthia into that. I think maybe not into the stripper version because that's just stupid. And
don't have to worry about it anymore.
That's true.
And now banned. Spoilers. We might discuss that in a bit. But as with the majority of the weekend, I had this inane ability to dodge every single Fi. I think round 1 I got a win that I will attribute to Liam for the amount of Briar games he's put me through, which is quite nice. So got round 1, Briar just went fast, knew what I had to do, and then it proceeded to be an entire rainbow of heroes from an Icelander match, which was captured by the folks from Fabled Academy, which is really cool, really nice thing to be on that. But then this moment of where are the Fies, and I played none, which was really sad, and I ended up going 2-5, which obviously wasn't kind of where I wanted to go in the Champions Battle. The call-in, round 1 I hit a Fie, I was really pleased, murdered them, and then proceeded to end up, again, playing a whole range of heroes, including a Levia, which was actually just a...
that was a sick game.
That was a really fun game.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching it.
Well, what sort of levy are we talking here? Are we talking Blood Debt or
you're talking Manzant's like pummel, no blood there except Hungering Slaughterbeast deck. It's actually the Levia player that made top 64. The one Levia player was the gentleman that Brooks played against, and lovely enough. And I'm not sure you enjoyed the game quite as much as I did, though, Brooks. I'll be honest.
I wasn't. It was one of those where you're just really hoping for something to go your way, and sort of on the turns that I'll set up a big Ironsong Determination. He played Bonehead Barrier and rolled a 6.
My man got Bonehead Barrier and got completely wrecked by a...
That's not something you expect to see. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been Bonehead Barriered.
In the immortal words of, I guess, me, nice Dawnblade idiot.
And you know, the problem with that is I wish it was less accurate. But it was literally, there was a certain series, it had to be a 6, you had to have Defense Reaction Arsenal, you had to have the 3 block in hand, and use a piece of equipment, and all of those things happened to just merge into the one turn.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. The thing is, the guy played really well, and like,
he played tight.
Exactly. So like, your luck pays off, right? You have to get lucky to win that game. Played through his outs, got lucky, wins the game. Gets ended by a brutal, reckless swing. It's pretty brilliant game to watch, honestly.
Yeah, and it really was getting to the stage where it was a. He had to get me to 2, and he was looking at potentially decking out. He did have the rainbow pommels, so I don't think I would have got there in the end, but it was still a really great game to be part of and just actually enjoy it.
God, I wish I could have watched that game. If there had been a stream, that would have been that one I'd have wanted to see, I think.
If every game of Flesh and Blood was like that, I think we'd have a lot more players. It was pretty spectacle.
It was one of those games you play, even if you lose, like I think even the game I had against an Icelander, even when you don't win, you come away going, that was a hell of a game. And you actually just enjoy the actual process and being part of that. But yeah, I had a whole rainbow. I had Bravos, I had 1 Prism, which, good luck, chump, go and sit down. Was pretty much all that could happen at that stage.
Can't wait for her to be out of here.
Oh, I mean, the fact that she's ended up with a requirement of just a solitary DOS points is irritating. But I think it was, on the whole, I think the meta was what we expected. A lot of Fi, although the stripper version was a new thing to me when you saw people doing terrible things to people with it.
I think a lot of people got to the Blossom of Spring deck independently. Obviously, versions were slightly different from each other, but a lot of different parties got there. And it was definitely the next step of innovation. And it's a shame that I didn't quite get there myself. We're still very set on Flamescale Furnace because blocking 3 is the nuts. But I would kind of expect... I really wouldn't be surprised if your Fidex is still playing Blossom going forward, even without Stubby Hammers. I just think having their 5-card turns without having to actually spend a card is a huge upside. And I guess realistically, you're probably playing Shuko now anyway, so you have a more block than you would have done before anyway. So
yeah, it's a very, very strong deck. There's only 2 ways about that.
No, I don't think you'll find anybody arguing that it's bad all of a sudden, even with Stubby's gone. Seems very powerful. So
yeah, it's been interesting to watch the evolution of the format because, he's not the top dog anymore, at least at time of recording anyway. But it's still definitely up there.
There was obviously it was nice to see Jamie do well with Dromai, and obviously that list was very different to some that I'd seen as well. So obviously it seems like Dromai's got some play.
Jamie definitely becoming every judge's least favourite player towards the end of the weekend. It's true, man. Like, the amount of ravenous rabbles that like people would reveal before declaring their target, and every time it's like, oh, judge, like, here we go again. Like, let's do this god awful dance. Yeah, it was a pretty well known fact at the end of the weekend that the judges were not enjoying Dromai as a hero, shall we say?
I mean, I think it's one of those moments where, you know, it is something that people need to remember, that you have to declare your target for, if you do Ravenous Rabble, you have to declare before you draw off the top if you're against the Dromai. It's pretty, it's a niche thing to happen, but it is something I think might come up once
especially
or
a
twice.
Professional rel, right? You got to be less sloppy than that, a professional.
Yeah. And so I think obviously the PT and calling folks, if you are playing Ravenous Rabble and you're playing against a Dromai, declare your target before you go off the top.
Yeah, I don't blame Jamie for getting frustrated all them fucking judge calls, to be honest.
Oh, God, no. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time watching Jamie because I spent more time watching them playing, but there was every game there was a judge involved, whether or not it was his fault or not. A lot of it wasn't, so it's definitely interesting.
Like I say, when you've had to make the same judge call like 3 or 4 times across the weekend,
it gets a bit tedious.
It does get tedious and frustrating. You know what the judge call is, but you kind of have to go through that dance, which I can see being incredibly irritating. But no, I actually really like the meta where it's kind of fallen at the moment. I'm glad Stubby's kind of took the hit, so that it's not just the whole myriad of five gets to the card he needs, goes full anime, breaks all of his armor, and then just some naked fire just destroys you from like 40 down to. Was it? We didn't get to see the final because we were busy sitting in Schiphol Airport, or as Hamish called it, Shithole Airport, which is probably slightly unfair.
That's exceptionally harsh. If anyone's ever been to a UK airport, we are miles behind Schiphol.
So far behind. But yeah, I think the meta isn't going to be interesting. I wish Prism was gone. Would have been a lovely moment.
Really sorry.
It is, yeah, as established, entirely your fault, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I've never thrown so badly by not throwing a game than by not letting Prism win that RTN and getting itself LL'd. I made a mistake.
Zero chance I was beating him in the final, so it is entirely on you, mate. Sorry.
But it seems like it's a bit of a worldwide effort. I've seen so many tweets and Facebook posts about people who are like, "Oh no, I also get through a game because I knew she was close and whatnot." Obviously, I think there's a bit of a thing about the structure of how the RTN seasons worked, where obviously locals want to get people through, and it doesn't quite. I don't know, not quite work out, and obviously what's the phrase? I heard someone use, obviously the LL points kind of get a bit skewed, but I don't know. I think people just whinging at that stage.
I think if you're that worried about LL points, I'd probably reassess your priorities a bit. I think if you've got concerns about people, I don't know, scooping in their friends or whatever, because you want Prism to be retired, you're probably playing the wrong game if you if you're that worried about playing against a hero. So
I mean, I would happily scoop to get rid of Prism.
That's a different story.
On the opposite side of it, there'd be that moment where if they announced, right, you're in a final against a Prism, right, I concede, and it's a race to who can concede first.
Brooks, I'm sorry, mate. I don't believe you'd be happy if you did get rid of Prism. I've got to be honest. People, as soon as she's gone, are going to crack out Oldhim, and I believe you hate Oldhim way more than you hate Prism.
Yeah, but at least if I'm playing against an Oldhim, I can just get out the trusty pistols. And
not entirely sure you got to wait for the re-arrival of Oldhim, from what I understand. This week's been a bit of a Guardian heyday. in terms of events. So everybody's real high on their Guardians right now.
It does say it. I mean, I expected it with Bravo. I'm surprised that that people are cracking out the Oldham deck. To be fair,
Problem is it makes this PT super wild, right? Because you've got all these people that are like, I want to play Prism for the last time, and it's good into all the Guardians. So, do you get a huge uptick of Prism because people want to send it off and play it into a Guardian filmed room? Do you get less Guardians because people are scared of a Prism film room? Like, it's gonna be super intriguing just because of how like lopsided that matchup is.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, then as well, like, are people still going to be on fire? I'm sure there'll still be at least some people out there who are pretty determined to play it once the Pro Tour comes around.
Deck's still really good. Deck is still really, really good.
I'm sure that could cause a Prism player a lot of problems. So, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting and open meta for this Pro Tour.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to actually just seeing how it pans out, because I think previously, obviously the last Pro Tour, I think people were surprised by how well Kano did, but almost that feels like the nature of Kano, that he comes out of nowhere.
The only thing is, I must say, I'd be surprised if we see him do half as well. I think as we did last time. I don't expect people to turn up without AB this time round.
I'll throw an analogy out there for, I guess, the ex-Magic players in your audience. It's quite a famous saying that the best time to play Affinity was when no one else is playing Affinity, because the sideboard hate cards are so good that if anyone knows it's coming, you get destroyed. And Kano very much felt like that to me. With PT1, you caught people with their hands in the cookie jar. They weren't respecting the concept and got smushed up a wall. And I think what has it done since? Absolutely nothing. The deck's like completely disappeared back into obscurity, because it was the perfect deck for that event. And I promise you, in a couple months, there will be another event where the same thing happens again, because it is always a repeating cycle of you only ever want to play that deck when no one else is playing it and no one is ready, and people forget every couple of months. And then if it just disappears and does nothing again for a while, and then about a year later, same thing. You'll get Kano crush an event again, and the cycle will repeat indefinitely until he retires himself.
Yeah, I think that's, to be honest, that's kind of what I'd expect to happen. And I think it's good at keeping people honest and keeping people in check, that you have to kind of keep respecting him, that he's there. But, whether that takes up slots in your
I don't. No, I do not.
Well, no, I think it'll be. I think it's set up to be quite an interesting couple of months in terms of the meta. Obviously, we're expecting Prism will disappear at some point in the very, very near future. And we just got to see where we end up, I think.
At least we get Nationals without her, I think.
Yeah, I mean, here's hoping. I suppose the only thing is there are actually many opportunities for her to win a not major event before Nationals. Because now we're out of RTN season, we've kind of only got, as far as I'm aware, callings and the PT before then.
Yes, Singapore. Yeah, so you have Singapore, Lille, Bands. I think there's another one as well. There's a couple. I think you have like 4 events before the national season. So
all it is only if she actually wins any of these, right? Like, I mean, you don't get any LL points for coming second. So,
folks,
there's
do me a favor. Someone
just
anyone. Like it just yeah.
Someone just take the hit.
I'm clinging on to the idea she might still be around. Who knows? It's I'm not sure I want the meta without her at the moment. Not that I want to play her, just not sure I want to see what that looks like yet.
That's fair.
I think that's completely fair.
# Spectra was a mistake.
Oh, absolutely, 100% a mistake. God damn.
So if you boys were betting men, obviously Lille's at the end of the month. What hero takes it for the Pro Tour?
We going in order? Or?
Oh, there you go. Liam's going. So
yep.
Go on, Scott. What do you think?
I
mean, obviously,
this is a loaded question because I know what certain people are playing, and I obviously want them to win a PT. But if I'm being honest, for me, it's between 2 heroes, and I think it's Viserai or Bravo that are taking taking this PT.
Yeah, they seem like a good shout. To be fair, I do think Bravo's riding real high right now. I think I'd go with Viserai, to be fair, but I do think Bravo could do it.
It's super intriguing to me that a lot of the UK camp, at least people that I speak to on a regular basis, are much higher on Viserai than like so many other parts of Europe and like Americas and so on and so forth. A lot of us think that deck is like an Apex player, and yet so many people just don't see it as being on the same level at the moment. And I don't know, the disparity is just super cool to me.
Mm.
It's always interesting to see these really real divergences in a meta. Like I think this was what made Utrecht so interesting as well, was we actually got to see why the south of the UK was liking Dromai so much. And I think it was
sure.
just that one list, But before, I remember looking at the RTM reports, thinking we've got this massive disparity up here. Everyone's on fire and everything else. What does this look like? And Utrecht would be interesting. And as it turned out, both have come out and been competitive. But,
no, what I'm hearing is the North was right. That Fire is the better of the two heroes, and the only person who can win with Dromai is Jamie Faulkner. And I'm fairly sure Jamie Faulkner could win an event with a ham sandwich, so that counts for very little.
I mean, I'd actually like to see someone just flip over the hero and it just be a ham sandwich now.
How do you get that into a sleeve? It's a tough sell, that.
Can you class a sandwich bag as a sleeve? I don't know.
I suppose so.
I have many questions.
These are the sort of questions we tackle on 0 to 60. And this is obviously why you're still tuned in an hour into this.
Real premium Flesh and Blood content, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, obviously, after your amazing, your great analysis earlier, Scott, I was thinking you were showing us up a bit, mate. So I thought we'd bring the content back down to, can you or not play a ham sandwich if it's in a sandwich bag?
Absolutely, mate. It's a bar to entry. Personally, I like to know whether or not I can block with the Jack of Spades. That's more what I'm interested in.
I know Liam like blocking with a sleeve the other day, so it's.
That's
got
because I didn't have
those
access.
days of proxy.
I didn't have access to the cards. I didn't.
You did have access to the card.
I was not playing with your gold foil. Sat in your house playing practice games.
Amateur hour.
Well, there's an easy answer to that. Make it not my gold foil and buy it off me. But yeah, I mean,
pretty sure he'd trade you at this point.
I'll sort you from brown seeds.
I'm pretty sure he said that on the day.
Yeah. Look at all these sick gold foil flexes, and I'm just a poor boy over here with my Voltaire playmat.
Well,
okay.
When they call in, get your gold foil extended arc crown of providence.
Did my man just turn around at me and say, "Just win the calling"? Yeah, no, don't worry, I got it.
Exactly.
Now you mention it, why not? Sure.
Yeah, no, that actually sounds like a great shout. Fuck it.
I don't know why I'd not thought of it beforehand. To be honest.
I mean, this is coming from the guy earlier. He just decided. He said he decided to win.
True. Yeah,
carry on deciding to win.
I should really choose to choose violence earlier in the event, and
and don't change your mind halfway through. I mean, come on.
If in doubt, choose violence.
You got me. You got me.
I'm really hoping that there's an interesting deck. I'd love to see a Dromai do something. I don't know.
Don't worry, Brooks, I got you covered.
I like seeing the dragons. I do think the Marvels. I think they do look great. So if they could, if the Dragon Lady does do something, I wouldn't be shocked, because I think there's a lot of play in that deck and some flexibility as well. But if that's
something spicy's winning calling, Lille. I promise you that. Might not be your favourite hero, though. I'll be honest.
I'll be honest. If the day that Dory wins something like that, I'll be a very happy man.
Alas, I can't play Dory.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's me that wins it, right?
We've just established that it's not, so I don't know why you're getting your hopes up, really.
You're putting yourself out of that title, mate. You just told Scott to win.
You just told me to win, so sorry, mate.
That's on you. I mean, you can't tell him you're going to win it afterwards.
Well, yeah, but you've got to give people hope, right? But no, I think something like a Dromai could do something, especially when people started to realise quite how good she is, and Fi isn't just the huge mess that appears at the end of things, and just strips off in front of everyone.
I don't know. Honest to God, don't write off Fi. I think a lot of people have done exactly what they did with Prism in like Briar's Supremacy, where they were like, "Oh, can't play that deck right now. It just got like shut down a bit. Go play something else." Fire is still really good, and I think if it's gonna win this PT, it's because everybody slept on it after this Stubby Hammer's ban.
I mean, this always happens after a ban, right? It's like Chain wasn't a dead deck after Seeds got banned.
Yep, Viserai wasn't dead after Skeleta went. Stop writing off decks. Like, just Fire is still really good. As a man who did not register Blossom of Spring because I'm very smart, like, the deck is still really good. It's still really, really good.
Yeah. Like, just because you got to go back to the drawing board for a bit, or like even with Fire, I don't think it takes there's not a huge amount to rework. I don't think to make that deck playable again. It's I think people are sleeping on it. People are writing it off just because they've got to change their deck list, which I think is daft.
I mean, just put just run the Shukos. I guess there's a slight change then because it's not just like almost like OTK styles, but
there's more changes than that. But like as I say, I kind of ended up taking this more attrition-based Fire list into Utrecht because I was happy with it in that format, knowing that Fire was the deck to beat. And as I said during the Champions Battle, like I was really happy with my Oldhim matchup with that list and felt like that matchup should be very hard to lose. You should be a solid like 80-20. And like if these Guardians are the kingpin, that attrition style of Fire is in a fantastic position.
Yeah, it seems surprisingly favoured. I think when we first saw Fire announced, I really did not expect him to have a good Guardian matchup.
No,
because I mean, you looked at the closest comparison being Katsu, and you're like, well, that's horrid. That's just a torrid time into Oldhim. How in the world is that going to be any
hard?
Yeah, and
I mean, Matt Rogers is quite famous for writing off Dash when Oldhim was spoiled, right? Gave Dash a literal funeral. In the wake of the Shield, and
that was embarrassing, right? I mean, but no, it's we've all done it. Like we all completely misevaluate cards, and I think it was a surprise.
Not all of us buy 25 copies of them, but some of us do.
I guess I assume we're all pretty much on the same page. Stubby ban, good thing, bad thing?
Yeah, good thing. I think, if I'm honest, do I think the deck was too good? No, I don't. I think if you'd left Stubbies legal, the PT would still have been quite enjoyable. The format still would have been quite diverse. But you do not need to give these like free 20% of games to 5 players who just open well and high roll off these 44 damage turns that no one can really compete with or interact with or make any meaningful decisions into. And for that reason, yeah, cool. Let's remove that free win valve and let the deck kind of like do its thing on a more consistent basis. So, do I think it was required? No. Am I happy it happened? Yes.
Yeah, I think pretty much echo the same sentiments on that one. I don't think it was unbeatable. It was definitely targetable. And yeah, I think it's nice to not have it be able to just high roll through those games. So yeah, pretty much exactly the same. I'm surprised we maybe didn't get it sooner because I think they were aware how busted these combos were. They obviously knew that because they banned it straight out the back Blitz.
Playing against that thing in Blitz.
Sit down, they turn over Fire. You go, thanks, good game. See you later.
I'd like to sign the slip now and save myself 28 seconds.
Exactly. I just can't be bothered adding up to 20. In one turn, it's fine. It's great. See you later. But yeah, I'm surprised we didn't see the ban. Maybe like from the release. I'm surprised they let us have that one tournament with Stubbies. But I think that was showed by just how quickly that ban restrict announcement came out of the blue. So
yeah, it's pretty clear they knew and were like they didn't want to rob people of the experience of seeing what the fully optimized Fire deck could do. And we're very much using that tournament as a gauge as to whether anything was required, right? Because let's be honest, the deck kind of dominated the top 8, even though there was only 3 copies in it. Both 2 made the final. And the reception to I don't like to view this too much when it comes to game design, but the sad truth is it matters more than ever in this modern day and age. That, I mean, look at social media after that event and everyone and their mother crying for bans and complaining that this is, the room's on fire, this deck's unreasonable, so on and so forth. And I think the sad truth is in a game like Flesh and Blood that is still growing and is still very, focused on keeping its player base happy, you have to respond to those things quickly and efficiently, regardless of whether they're well-founded, is the sad truth. Because a negative public image does more damage to you than the players you'll lose from banning a common. And I think that definitely influenced that choice as well. If the reception had been, look at this cool ninja aggro deck, and I can't wait to play it at my armory, and that had been the universal consensus online and the public-facing image, maybe it doesn't happen. But I think most people were like, oh, here we are again. It's Cheerios Briar. It's the same fucking story. And it was a very negative reception to the deck. And I think that did have a part to play in flicking the switch, shall we say. It's pretty clear that it was on the radar already. I wouldn't be surprised if the article had already been written prior to Utrecht for the ban list, but I think it probably had an effect on deciding to make that post go live over not.
Yeah. Like I say, I think I do. If it'd been nice to see if anyone could have come up with an answer, but at the same time, like I say, I think reputationally, after Starvo, after Cheerios Briar, after Chain, how they all came out the gates.
This is the thing. There's almost certainly an answer, and I actually would have actively expected there to be, but that answer still just randomly loses 1 in 5 games to get in high rolled, and you don't need that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there was definitely some answers out there. I was very targetable ice heroes. They just weren't common in the meta when we went into Utrecht. So I don't think that field was particularly prepared for playing into that. I think if you pack your deck with on hit effects, he's not like Starvo. He doesn't have crown and shield and the ability to block effectively even with 2 blocks. Just not sitting there waiting for a combo, and then hasn't got the on-hit triggers to strip you of your turn. It's not the same as it was in the previous.
I think we just have to.
I don't think it was a problem.
We have to kind of keep calling it the Prism problem, sadly, don't we? In the sense that the decks that beat Fi could not beat Prism.
Yes,
and so you end up in this super polarizing metagame where it's you got to pick a matchup to lose, which is never where you want to be heading into a calling where 11-4 or whatever is required to make top 8.
Yeah, you don't want your entire tournament resting on whether Gem's where Gem's gonna pair you.
Exactly,
and exactly what you were doing.
That's kind of the issue, right? It's it was pretty apparent now that maybe the answer to Fi was these Guardian decks, these Oldims, these Bravos that were already starting to come out of the woodwork in Utrecht, with with the Bravo making the top 8 in that field, and it's if you make that choice, you can never be Illusionist. So what do you choose? And that's the dilemma I really hope future design looks to avoid, because I'm really not a fan of 90-10 matchups myself.
Yeah, no, and like you say, it is the Prism problem. Unfortunately, that's what Prism creates. Like you say, Spectra being what it is. So, but hopefully we won't have that problem much longer.
No, I think it'll be especially me and my beloved Dory. We certainly won't be upset when Spectra takes a well-deserved, well-needed break.
I think, truth be told, all 4 of us are a bit biased here, right? We're all guilty of playing decks that are actively bad into Prism, so there is no doubt some personal bias on this.
We say all this. The only thing is, you've got to remember that Spectra will be back at some point. There will be a new light illusionist.
Yeah, for sure.
And they might not have Luminaris, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but we're still going to have to deal with taking your whole turn off to destroy an aura.
Thanks for reminding us of that sad fact, George.
That's what I'm here for, mate, to bring the mood
I don't
down.
know. I'm confident there is design space that you can utilize Spectra in not quite as a game warping a sense. I would be way happier to see more Parable of Humilities and Otaraths than I would be to see more Genesises and Haze Bendings.
Yeah, I mean, also, to be honest, I think that there's definitely the space there. Where, I remember getting quite excited. I think it was when they were doing the teasers for Everfest. And one of them was obviously hinting at Runic Reclamation, when they were obviously trying to say that there was a card that was going to destroy auras. And I was like, let this be a generic card. Give us a way that we can put something in the deck that will allow us to destroy auras without giving up an action point, that we can actually run copies of, that anyone can have access to. Because it would just open up the Prism matchup so much more to other decks and everything else, and make it so much more tolerable. Not a 90-10, but sadly it wasn't, and it was a Runeblade card. Great. like they had a bad Prism matchup in the first place.
It's
Obviously,
basically generic, right?
Sure, yeah, because any Central player plays Runeblade, right? I mean,
So basically the same thing, generic card, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it's a sad fact that that's really true. Probably more true than we want it to be. But no, I think it'll be. I'm looking forward to the Pro Tour and the call-in, watching what people turn up with.
Even more so, given the company I'm with.
You abandon us when we get there, Scott. That's a bit rude.
Gets us there, and that's it. That's why you belittle him, minnows, mate. We're going to send you to find him.
How do I put this politely? Fuck you, George.
I respect it. You see, you're regretting this trip already, mate. I can see it.
I regret absolutely nothing. They will never find your body in France.
Oh, shit.
The thing is, we have to find a short ass so we can reveal them to you to then go and find Scott. So
you see, now I'm regretting even knowing this guy.
Who's got two attack that I know? Questionable.
Depends who's chosen violence on the day, right?
True, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think we've covered quite a lot, and as is tradition, now when we got guests on, obviously when we do our Vexing Malice, we like to give it to our guest. So Scott, if
just before we do move over to there, though, I was going to say one thing is we probably should mention as well is obviously we've signed up for Baz's UK team championship as well.
Oh yes, we have.
We'll be going on the week before. Is it the week before the calling on the Sunday? I think it is down in Manascrew. Looks like a fantastic event. So I know the three of us will be signed up as Team 0 to 60. Yeah, we're looking forward to playing in it in a Team CC event. I'm not sure we're organised in the slightest for it, but it should be a.
And Baz, if you're listening, this is not sponsored, but it could be. Some of us have worked in entertainment for a few years. We know how to make this work.
Well, you say we're not prepared. I can imagine George knows what hero he's taken already. I know what hero I'm taking already. The only problem is Liam will be locked and change his deck 45 times. Yeah, the man of a million decisions.
the man with a million. Well, I even said watch this podcast to be fair.
Yeah, but you've been unusually quiet.
I don't know. It was about Utrecht.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's quite a lot of self-reflection going on, so it's fine.
Oh, jeez.
Why am I friends with these guys?
No, I genuinely, I know, like, it sounds. I know it sounds kind of bad, but I think Utrecht might be one of the most important events I've been to because it is a lot of self-reflection on processes of how I want to do things in future. So,
I don't think that sounds bad at all, honestly.
That's what I mean. I think I want to use it as positive, and obviously, I didn't win a game of CC, and that's definitely not happening again. I think that I'm generally going to be way more prepared and stop making excuses for my own faults.
You won't have a similar experience. I don't think that you are
very
prepared compared to the last few events we've done.
I keep flip flopping. Obviously, used to like to take the piss out of me about my indecisiveness, even when we're choosing a place to eat when we're playing a street armor. It's.
But I've seen you flip flop like 3 times in a night between a hero you're going to take to the next major tournament.
It is true, but I think I don't know. This time feels different.
So I dread the day there's some other card game tournament going on the same day as a fab event in a venue because you might just choose to play the other one.
suddenly walks into the room. I've decided to play MetaZoo, boys.
But then, why are you carrying that stereo?
You can't be coming out with oxymorons like that. Play MetaZoo? That's not a sentence that you're allowed to say. Sorry. On what was the worst event I've ever attended in terms of my performance when I just got absolutely mullered by numerous bravos. I did actually buy a MetaZoo deck just to see what the crack was about. Fucking hell, I'd rather eat my own fucking eyes.
And do you know what? It did exactly what it raised my mood by going, what the fuck is going on? Why is the attack on this card based on how many light bulbs are in the room? It was absolutely fucking mental.
Man, it just sounds like you're tripping, that. It's just like...
Honestly, I enjoy watching it so much. He made the masterful play at one point of taking off his belt, and that swung the game. So, it was great.
It's just... As much as I rib on it, and I do, I'm just going to go on the record and say it's not for me. I think they've made some choices I actively disagree with. If you do enjoy the game, fair play to you. It's just not not my cup of tea.
But anyway, sorry. This was a slight aside from me. Anyway,
yeah.
We're not a MetaZoo podcast. If you're listening at this point, and for some reason you're like, "What the fuck are these guys talking about MetaZoo?" Sorry.
if we get a big spike in listeners now because we mentioned MetaZoo,
that's it. We'll start a MetaZoo podcast,
and you will never see me again.
Oh dear. But yeah, so Scott, Vexing Malice, you got 2 minutes to rant about one thing of your choice.
All right, I got one immediately in mind since you mentioned it. Why on fuck's green earth do we tie signature weapons to heroes? I think from a flavor perspective, that concept is really cool. If you're retiring a hero, the weapon they're known for should go with them. But the sad fucking truth is that doesn't work because you've printed Rosetta Thorn. Like, Nebula Blade should not be the first weapon to ever get retired in any format for Living Legend points because it is a 5 out of 10 in Limited, right? It was not responsible for Viserai reaching Living Legend. Get rid of the goddamn Thorn if it's the deck they played, or don't do the thing. Like, now I can't like Briar, okay? Now I'm just mad every time I see Briar because Viserai is not playable in Blitz because of this bitch. And it has absolutely nothing to do with anything that came from Everfest. Ignore those cards. Please, for God's sake, like, I Rosetta Thorn, I guess, is the problem here. All in all, everybody should be ranting about that. But Nebula Blade being the first weapon to go feels so ridiculous outside of flavor, and I kind of hate it.
I mean, I've always found something quite amusing about the fact that, I mean, I think I said it before. Like, I always thought that when he did that banned and restricted about Briar and what they were going to do with them with Viserai, I was like, oh, they'll just make Rosetta Thorn elemental. You can't play it. So quite like that. If a hero's really broken, like Luminaris will go with Prism, and we will not see the likes of Luminaris again. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, that works. And, like, again, this could have been remedied in a number of different ways. I always said it was super strange to me that fundamentally Briar is the only hero from Tales of Aria that doesn't actually care about the, like, attunement of the attacks it's hitting with or, like, the things it's doing. Because, like, Oldhim actively cares about Earth and Ice cards. Lexi obviously actively cares about Ice and Lightning cards. Briar kind of just doesn't. The hero ability still triggers regardless of what you were doing it with when it comes to making embodiments, and it always felt super strange to me that was a conscious choice in design. And very much the same thing with Rosetta Thorn. It's like, yeah, you could have just, like, there's a reason we don't let Bravo have Winter's Wail or, you know, any of this kind of stuff. Like, you could have just tied this weapon. If your priority is tying weapons to heroes to make them feel like signature weapons, so they feel like part of that character's identity and that they're so important they deserve to be living legended at the same time, go out of your way to actively tie them to the hero so that other heroes cannot use that weapon. Like, you have to pick a lane. Either go with flexibility so that more Rune Blades can play the same weapon, or go with rigidity and make them feel like the signature weapons you're claiming they are.
Yeah, I can buy into that entirely. Any response, chaps?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think I can make much of an argument against that. We all know Rosetta Thorn's fucking stupid, let's be honest.
How did you print two Runeblade weapons in the same set and they're both fucked?
At least they had a good decency to ban one of them.
They didn't ban the token.
No, I know, of course not. They just banned the one you had to pull. So
my cold foil.
But I mean, the thing that's nice though, because I know obviously you're a big fan of it with the Ranger, that Death Dealer is pretty much never ever gonna go.
Exactly. I can't really complain because you know, objectively the best bow is never going to be Living Legends.
Uh-oh.
I didn't think Lexi was that bad, to be honest.
Me and Brooks are going to duck while there's all the fucking arrows getting fired across our screens.
I'm just fishing, but yeah, it's
no. Obviously, as much as you play with Death Dealer all the time, like, it's the lore makes it pretty clear it's meant to be Azalea's big, like, ace in the hole, right? It's her tool. It's like, look at this cool elemental ranger we've made. Just give her this grotty bow from the pit. You know, like, they just.
It doesn't fit in the slightest.
Voltaire strikes twice. This legendary lightning imbued bow. No, average bow from the corner shop, mate. Cheers.
It's a bit ironic though that I think if anything, the best bow that probably exists that would be for Azalea isn't really Death Dealer anyway. It just doesn't really work with their hero ability. It's just it's just joyous.
It's fine. I mean, let's face it, and remember that Ranger actually has the most weapons.
We do. It's just a shame that half of them are shit.
Hey, don't you talk about Redliner like that.
You've got Redliner, you've got Dreadbore, you've got Shiver.
Another controversial hot take. The worst thing that ever happened to Ranger was the banning of Plunder Run.
I'd love to make an argument against that, but
prove me wrong.
I mean, I'm not sure we were winning anything beforehand, to be fair. So I don't.
Oh dear, but no, I don't think I've got anything else I want to add, chaps, unless any of you boys do.
No, I'm mostly good. I'll plug myself real quick if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Yeah, fuck it. So obviously, sadly, I am not normally with the 0-60 boys because I am not in Manchester, even though my beard does put them to shame. But if you do enjoy, well, not George. George puts me to shame. That's probably fair.
I mean, mine's had a trim recently, so you never know.
But if you do enjoy my takes on stuff, or you want to talk fab or anything else with me, you can find me at Howling Minds everywhere on the internet, be that Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all over the shop. Alternatively, I'm about to start working for the .gg network, who are a massive gaming site as well. So if you're into your Magic the Gatherings, into your Marvel Snaps, that kind of stuff, you'll find me on all of their platforms too. So come and hang out sometime, and I'm sure you'll see me again with these troublesome trio at an event near you as well, I'm sure.
Well, I'm pretty sure we'll, not just on that, I'm sure we'll have you back on soon.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have Lille to recap, won't we? So
yeah, true. I guess if I'm turning up to more events with you, I'll be over here more often.
Yeah.
I imagine so.
Oh fuck! What have I signed up for?
I was going to say you didn't realize what you'd let yourself in for up until this exact moment.
They didn't even ask me to join the podcast. They're just like, get the fuck in here.
Yeah. That's what we all ended up here, mate. None of us wanted to do this.
You actually thought we was turning up for some test games. We just
originally when this podcast started back on episode 1, it was just Brooks. Then by episode 4, he picked up Liam. By episode 9, he's got George. And now I'm the acquisition on episode 15. By episode 52, we'll have a whole chorus of motherfuckers in here telling you their opinions about Flesh and Blood.
What he's saying is, please send help.
If I blink twice into the camera that you can't see, they've got me chained to the desk.
There's a reason why Brooks doesn't do video on these.
Yeah, because, well, that's actually more just for people's screens they'd crack.
Anyone know Morse code? Anyone? No? Okay, fair.
SOS, that's all you need, boys. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Scott, and very much looking forward to spending several hours on trains, ferries, and cars with you.
Me too. Very much looking forward to claiming my Azalea bounty after I'm done winning the calling. It's going to be a good weekend.
I don't want to see. I'm not going to lie.
Let's face it. I think everyone wants to see that.
Every now and then, it's nice to make a cool shot.
Right. In that case, I think we're done. Thank you, George. Thank you, Liam, and thank you, the actual Howling Scott Mines.
What you like? The actual factual Howling Minds is acceptable. Factual. At least I didn't get recognised by the guy in McDonald's like Liam thought I did.
That was true. That was actually a true story.
He
was talking to him, like picking up his order. He's like, he looked like he was making conversation, like, Joe, like when you recognise someone, I know who you are. So I was like, did he recognise you? I was like, no.
Yeah, I guess full disclosure, I've been recognised 2 or 3 times at the event by people who knew me, or like from a previous life, or like following me on Twitter or whatever. And it became a bit of a running joke because Philippe Van Donzelaar, I sat down to play the match, and he turns around and goes, "Are you the actual factual Howling Minds?" And I was like, "How the fuck do you know me? I don't know who you are." And it turns out he'd just seen a tweet I put out like the day before, so like he recognised my face from the tweet or whatever, and that's where it came from. But it's now become like a recurring joke. So like I get stopped at this McDonald's in the airport on the way home, and the guy starts talking to me about my shirt because he's just like, "I like your shirt." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, dude. I appreciate it." I come back with my food. They're like, "Did he fucking recognise you? Did he know you were the real Scott Howling Minds?" I'm like, "I'm never gonna get away from this ever."
No, that's it. You are from now on the actual factual Howling Minds. That's it.
I mean, the thing to always remember is if you were around any of us, much like Flake and Big Sauce, as soon as anything like that happens, we are going to jump on it, and we do not forget.
It is true.
We are bastards for it.
I look forward to fucking Ross at EH saying it to me next time I see him at an event.
It will be
that was truly spectacular for Liam. Having that yelled across the room.
I think the worst part about all that was I didn't hear anyone shout Liam, but as soon as you shouted Big Sauce, my head turned. I was like, "You fucking idiot!
You fool! You played yourself."
And I had Bob Patton coming up to me going, "Why is he calling you Big Sauce?" I was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, here we go again."
That's it. Oh dear, right, boys. I think we're done.
And on that bombshell.
Yes,
I think it's time to end. For anyone who's still hanging around at this point, thanks for listening. And,
Indeed.
thanks, boys, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Have a good one.
See ya.
Bye.